thank you for showing up. Again, my name is Matusewitch, and I've worked in the field of equal employment opportunity law or employment discrimination law for 25 years for the New York City government. After I retired from the city government, I did teach fundamentals of EEO law and NYU and Long Island University Paralegals Studies program. And the purpose of my presentation today is to get you to consider a career in equal employment opportunity or employment discrimination law. This is what I would call a non-paralegal but related occupation. You can use your knowledge and skills that you picked up in the paralegal school and apply them to what I consider a socially useful and satisfying career. What I'd first like to do is talk to you about the handout package, just to go over that briefly with you. You'll find my biography and what I've done over the years. I've also been involved in teaching, writing, lecturing in the field of equal employment opportunity. You'll find a document on what are the duties of an EEO officer, which will give you an idea in print on what they do, and I'll go over that a little bit more with you, but it's nice to have something in print to look at. The next document is a one-page document, which is an EEO and affirmative action law course that's offered by the American Association for Affirmative Action, which is the leading professional association in this field. And I'll be referring to it as we go through the presentation. This is to let you know that if you're interested in going to Denver, Colorado in October, and you have the funds to do so, you can take what is usually a very good 16-hour course, which will give you a very good overview of the topic. The next document is from Montgomery College, Maryland, and that is a description of certificate programs in human resources offered at Montgomery College and sponsored by the American Management Association. And I'll talk more about that as well. The next document I think is very significant, and that's the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission Internship Program. And as you'll hear me say, I'm a big fan of internship programs to get your foot in the door of any career. And this will be excellent for anybody who is interested in moving into the career of equal employment opportunities. The next document is a directory of professional associations in our field. The first one is the Society for Human Resource Management, or SHRM. That is the leading organization representing HR professionals of all specialties, including equal employment opportunity, which is often listed as a specialty within human resources. The next organization is the Human Resource Association of the National Capital Area, which is an affiliate, a local affiliate of the Society for Human Resource Management, and again, the American Association for Affirmative Action. The next document is a directory of fair employment practices agencies. These are the federal, state, and local human rights agencies that enforce the anti-discrimination laws, which is the subject of this occupation. The most important one, of course, is the federal agency, the EEOC, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, but you also have the District of Columbia Office of Human Rights, the Montgomery County Office of Human Rights, and the Arlington County Office of Human Rights. And you have the contact information for all of them, including their website. The next two pages is a table of the major federal EEO laws. This is just to give you a graphic representation of who are the protected, so-called protected classes under the federal anti-discrimination laws. It doesn't include the myriad state and local laws as well, but only those individuals who are protected under the federal civil rights laws. The most important and comprehensive law here is Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which you'll be hearing a great deal about if you ever move into this field. Employment discrimination law, in shorthand form, is often referred to as Title VII law because that is the most comprehensive anti-discrimination law. Next, since you all go to George Washington University, I've attached the university's policy on equal opportunity. If you want to see the university's commitment to equal opportunity, this is their statement. and gives you information about who to contact if you have a complaint or a concern or want to discuss an EEO issue in your university. And the last document is one of my recent articles that appears in the National Paralegal Report, which is published by the National Federation of Paralegal Associations, and it's Objection Mandatory Retirement of Law Firm Partners. And the issue I addressed here, is it legal under the civil rights laws to require partners, law firm partners, to retire either at age 65 or 70 or whatever? What is the law regarding that issue? It's now a very hot topic, and law firm mandatory retirement policies are under sharp attack by lawyers and others. So if you're interested in a topic, I hope you enjoyed the article. And please feel free to stop me anytime if you have a question. I'd like to answer your question or whatever concern you may have as I go along. Now, the first question, of course, is what do EEO officers do? They may be called EEO specialists. Entry-level professional ones are often called EEO specialists. As you move up the ladder, you may become an EEO officer or EEO director, but they are all EEO professionals. And every medium to large-sized organization, whether public or private, nonprofit, educational, usually has one or more employees who is designated an EEO specialist or an EEO officer. Sometimes they're referred to as affirmative action officer. They all do the same thing. They have slightly different titles. In most cases, in particularly medium to large-sized organizations, these individuals are under the umbrella of the Department of Human Resources. EEO is often considered a specialty like occupational safety and health, training, labor relations, and other benefits administration and the like. So often you'll see EEO as one of the boxes within the Human Resources Department. Now, EEO professionals perform a variety of functions. The first and foremost function of an EEO officer is to keep the employer in compliance with the federal, state, and local anti-discrimination laws, like Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, and national origin. That is the first and foremost responsibility of the EEO department. Now, one of the major functions, the actual functions that EEO professionals do, is to receive, investigate, and resolve complaints of employment discrimination by their employees. An individual who believes that he or she is being discriminated based on his or her membership in a so-called protected class can go to an EEO officer, file a complaint, and have the complaint investigated and resolved professionally and impartially. The other things that EEO professionals do, and which I have done as well over the years when I worked in the field, was to develop and conduct training sessions on employment discrimination law for employees, whether co-workers, supervisors, managers, and the like. And a very important function is the training function in the organization. In order to keep the organization in compliance, it's critical that employees receive training on employment discrimination law so as to avoid violating laws. EEO officers may also prepare and administer what are called EEO programs or affirmative action programs. If an organization is a federal contractor, for example, it's required by federal law to prepare a written affirmative action program which sets forth the efforts it will make to provide equal opportunity to members of the protected classes, women, minorities, people with disabilities, and the like. And those programs are reviewed and approved by the federal government in order for the company to continue to receive federal contracts. They have to prepare affirmative action programs. Finally, one of the other important functions EEO officers have is to provide extensive oral and written advice on employment discrimination law to employees. Most of the time, management will call on them and say, we have a problem, we have an issue, what do we do? What is the law regarding this particular topic? And so the EEO officer, as the expert, has to be able to prepare written or oral advice to management on a particular employment discrimination issue. So the EEO professional has to keep up with all the developments, all the important developments in the field, whether at the federal, state, or local levels. Now, what do EEO professionals earn? Salaries for EEO professionals can range from an entry-level salary of $35,000 to $40,000. But if you're promoted up the ladder and you become a director of EEO or an EEO officer, you can easily earn over $100,000. Very easily earn that much money. So it can be a decent paying profession if you stay in it and if you move up the ranks. The next thing is, what are the knowledge, skills, and abilities necessary to function as an EEO professional? Well, first of all, it should be very obvious, a good knowledge of American government. Because this is a very heavily regulated area of the law. So you have to know how American government functions, what are administrative agencies, know something how they operate, have an idea about how the courts operate. So it also involves a knowledge of the American legal system. Very important if you're going to be an EEO professional, a good knowledge of the American legal system. You have to be able to identify, read, and interpret regulatory documents, executive orders, federal, state, and local court decisions, and the like. You spend a lot of time going over those documents. So you really have to understand and be able to interpret those documents. Since EEO professionals investigate complaints, of course, they have to have good investigative skills. They have to know how to properly process, investigate, and resolve complaints of employment discrimination. They also have to have good analytical skills. They have to be able to take the facts that are presented to them and determine if there is a violation of any of the anti-discrimination laws. So applying the facts and the law and make a determination. Good writing skills. And that goes with so many other occupations, but EEO professionals do a lot of writing. Again, they will have to prepare investigative reports. They will have to provide written guidance to management on employment discrimination law issues. They may have to prepare the EEO or affirmative action programs that I mentioned to you. So, of course, good writing skills are essential. Good training skills, of course. If you're going to develop and conduct EEO training sessions, you really have to have an idea of how to develop these programs, what has to go into the programs, and the methodologies for delivering these programs. So EEO professionals often work closely with training specialists in their organizations when they develop and administer these programs. There's a lot of work, and I had that between the EEO office and the training office in the organization. Training people are not the subject matter experts, but they provide guidance to EEO on how to develop and deliver those programs. So if you enjoy training, this is, again, also a very good field for you, because you're going to be doing a lot of it. Perhaps even most important, if you want to go into the field of EEO, you need to have a desire and an empathy to work with people who are historically disadvantaged in this country. And of course, that includes minorities, women, people with disabilities, older people. Now there are more laws protecting people based on their sexual orientation, gender identity. There are even laws now protecting people who are victims of domestic violence and stalking, and the list goes on and on. So you don't go into the profession unless you have a desire to work on behalf of these individuals and have some empathy for these individuals who have historically discriminated against in our country, of course. Is there any questions so far? How do you prepare for a career in employment opportunities? There is no one way that I'm aware of to gain entry into the field. That being said, however, I've found that most people who go into the field have some background or training in either human resources or the law. Again, as I mentioned, because this is such a heavily regulated area of law, being a paralegal or an attorney is really critically important. And I also found over the years that many attorneys, particularly, are not that happy working as attorneys. So they are moving into other fields where their legal training is very helpful to them and where employers view their legal training as very helpful and seem to want to hire attorneys as HR professionals and EEO professionals. So what you're doing now, in my opinion, is excellent preparation if you want to enter the field of equal employment opportunity. You will have a head start on people who have no background in that area. Now, let's assume you don't have an HR degree or a law degree. I would recommend, if you're interested in getting into the field, taking one or more courses, either in employment law generally or employment discrimination law specifically, if you can find those courses. I didn't find many of those courses offered in the Washington, D.C. area. I was rather surprised. What I did find, and what I did attach in the package, as I mentioned earlier, are a course offered by the American Association for Affirmative Action, which is offered as part of its certificate program to become a certified affirmative action professional. That is one of the courses that they offer to become certified as an affirmative action professional. I have that certification. It's called CAAP, Certified Affirmative Action Professional. As I also mentioned, Montgomery College, which has a workforce development division, offers the certificate programs in human resources management, which includes training, of course, in employment law and employment discrimination law. It's broader, but it does include that as well, because employment law is such a big part of what HR professionals are involved in today. So if you take any kind of a course in HR, you're going to be exposed to employment law as well. Now, although it's not included in this handout package, Cornell University in New York offers an online course on issues and concepts in EEO law. And I have material about it. If you're interested in learning more about it, I have something here. You can come see me later on and I'll show it to you. If you're interested, the Cornell University School of Industrial and Labor Relations in New York City is one of the few schools, if not the only school that I'm aware of, that offers a full certificate in EEO studies. Unfortunately, it's a very expensive program, and most attendees have their employers pay for them. It easily costs $5,000 to $7,000 or $8,000 to complete the program. But it's a very comprehensive program, and people who come through the program are sought after because of the knowledge they have from Cornell University. But again, the problem is in New York. It is in New York City, and it's very expensive, but it is the only certificate program that I'm aware of that's being offered in the U.S. Now, I myself will be making a presentation on fundamentals of the EEO law for paralegals for the National Capital Area Paralegal Association after January 1st. I don't know what date that will be yet. It's probably going to be a 2-hour course, and it will provide you with 2.0 continuing legal education credits. So this is maybe one good reason, if you haven't done so, to join the National Capital Area Paralegal Association. You will be made aware of when this seminar is being offered, and you can enroll for it. And you may decide that you're interested in the field based on sitting through a 2-hour presentation, or you may not. But it's good in general to join the association, even if you haven't already. So a little plug for NCAP. What else can you do to gain a foothold in the field of equal employment opportunity? Consider an internship at a civil rights agency. These federal, state, and local civil rights agencies, which you have a list of in your package, employ a whole range of EEO specialists to receive and investigate and resolve complaints of discrimination by members of the public. So they need EEO specialists to enforce these laws and to investigate complaints by members of the public. Look over that one-page document from the EEOC, the internship program, and if that interests you whatsoever, I highly recommend you contact them after this. Now, in addition, the District of Columbia Office of the Attorney General also offers an internship for college students, and including an internship in the field of personnel, labor, and employment. Again, I didn't include that in the package, but I do have print material on that if anybody is interested in an internship at the DC Office of the Attorney General doing work in employment law as an intern. Which sounds like a really useful opportunity if you want to get into the field. I'm also a big believer in volunteer work. I mean, if you can't find paid work, volunteer work can be a big asset to you. You can do volunteer work for one of many public interest organizations here in the Washington, D.C. area. Many of these groups do advocacy work on behalf of women, minorities, people with disabilities, older people, and the like. Some of these organizations include Legal Momentum, M-O-M-E-N-T-U-M, which used to be the Women's Legal Defense Fund. It's now called Legal Momentum, and they are on the cutting edge of legal advocacy on behalf of women's rights. It's an excellent organization. If you're interested in that sort of thing, I would go to their website and contact them. You can also, for example, consider an organization like the American Civil Liberties Union, which is a very older organization that advocates on behalf of minorities and others as well, and does a great deal of litigation, preparing reports, doing research. So I'm sure the Career Services Department at GWU can help you if you want to identify public interest organizations that you can do work for, volunteer work, or internship work. There are print and online directories of these public interest organizations. And many of them have offices, of course, in the Washington, D.C. area, because they also want to influence federal legislation. Another very important thing you can do is join human resources and EEO professional associations. Among other benefits, they offer invaluable networking opportunities. They allow you to view job notices that are posted on their website. They sponsor lectures on recent developments in employment law. And they offer professional certifications, as I mentioned before, which is very helpful if you want to move up in your career, is to get a relevant professional certification. As I mentioned, I'm certified as an affirmative action professional by the American Association for Affirmative Action, and I'm also certified as a professional in human resources by the Society for Human Resource Management. These organizations typically offer deeply discounted membership fees for students. So price should not be a problem if you want to get involved in a professional association. It could be as little as $25 per year for students. Now, in addition to finding jobs on the websites of these professional associations, I can recommend at least 2 other websites for you if you want to at least look at the job opportunities out there. One, of course, is www.usajobs.com. The federal government employs many EEO specialists in federal agencies throughout the country. You can go to the site, for example, the website that I just mentioned, and plug in the title EEO Specialist or Equal Opportunity Specialist. They use both Equal Employment Opportunity Specialist or Equal Opportunity Specialist in the job title search box, and you'll get a bunch of job vacancy notices around the country for those titles. Of course, there's always Monster.com. And I inserted the EEO Specialist title in their job search box, and I came up right away with at least 3 vacancy notices in Atlanta, New York City, and Philadelphia. So you can find jobs on there as well. Some are entry level, and some, of course, require work experience. Now, here's another interesting suggestion for you. Since you all go to George Washington University, and since the college has an EO policy and an EO officer, why not consider contacting your school's EO officer, who happens to be Lydia Martinez? She might be able to give you practical advice and guidance on getting into the EEO field. She might be able to help you finding internships or even doing work for her office. You never know. Although her name is not on the EO policy statement that I handed out, I do have her complete contact information, and you can also just plug in her name in Google and up will come her phone number, email, and the like. So that is actually all of my prepared remarks, and I'd be happy to talk about whatever concerns, questions you might have.
Do you see a lot of openings in this area? Do you see a big trend?
Well, let me say this. This is a dynamic occupation because if you keep up with developments, more and more protected classes are being added to the civil rights laws. As I mentioned, sexual orientation, gender identity, victims of domestic violence. A number of states are even adding unemployed individuals as a protected class on the civil rights laws because there's a number of employers who refuse to hire people who are unemployed for a variety of reasons. So as these laws continue to expand, there's a need for more trained professionals to actually understand and administer these laws. It's creating more work for the civil rights agencies and more work for employers. So in my opinion, this is a growth industry. It is not receding, but it is expanding as the laws continue to develop and add more and more protected groups to the civil rights laws. And I think being in Washington area is a big advantage, as I said, because there are so many groups that want to influence legislation that certainly if you're interested in working for a public interest organization, at least initially, I think you have a good chance either as a volunteer, an intern, or maybe even in a paid position. It's a fairly unique area to be working with.
Do you believe that companies more look to attorneys to fill these EEO positions more than they look for other categories of persons?
Well, as I said, companies look very favorably on people who have some legal training. Again, because it's such a heavily regulated area of law. If you have an HR degree, human resources degree or experience, that is also helpful, of course. But if you have legal training, I think that may be viewed even more favorably by many employers. And you'll see, and from my own experience, I found that many people in HR and EEO now have law degrees or some other legal training because it's just critical that they be able to understand, interpret, and apply the civil rights laws. So, and when I was working at the New York City Equal Employment Practices Commission, I was deputy director and I was involved in making hiring decisions. And if somebody had a paralegal certificate or a law degree, we looked very favorably on them. We knew that person would probably do better than somebody who didn't have that training and would require a lot more help or training in order to work effectively. So if you have your paralegal certificate, I think you can have a step up on other people as well. And as I said, I think it's a very closely related occupation. Although you're not a practicing paralegal, the question is, do you want to practice solely as a paralegal, or do you want to broaden your opportunities? This allows you to broaden the possibilities in terms of employment and careers. And only if you like the idea, if you want to do something that I consider very socially useful and beneficial, I think it's a good career to consider.
provided, are you aware of any internship opportunities at this time, or, because I know you provided a link as well, but.
Well, when you said American Society for Human Resource Management and American Affirmative Action, I'm not aware that they themselves provide internships, although SHRM might. They might. I'm not aware of it. I think you're more likely to find internship opportunities with the public interest organizations like Legal Momentum, American Civil Liberties Union, and a whole host of others. Even the American Association of Retired Persons, which advocates on behalf of older people. They're more likely to have paid or unpaid internships or volunteer opportunities, which will allow you to get your foot in the door and put that on your resume.
What opportunities there for somebody like me, like myself, who has a full-time job,
Yes.
would love to do some internship, but the hours just,
I know it's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy if you have to have a full-time job and you want to do an internship someplace else. I don't know how I can answer that for you. It depends on how much you really want to get into this other field and how flexible an organization might be with you. So there are several considerations, and it's between you and an organization. If an organization likes you and really wants you, they often will find ways to be flexible with you and find you some hours that you might be able to work. But I can't easily answer that question. It's difficult. I understand how difficult that is.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to sacrifice monetarily. If you want to transition or move into another field, there may be a period where you have to sacrifice for a longer range goal. I'm sure you've heard that.